الحمد لله الذي له جنود السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله العليم الكريم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. Respectful honored friends and mothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the year has blessed us with various different occasions, whether it be in the form of the Ashurul Hurum, the sacred months, whether it be in the form of the months of Ramadan, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us auspicious days and nights in the form of the night of Qadr as well as the day of Ashura. Similarly, the month of Shaban is also a month that holds auspiciousness. And one of the main reasons of its auspiciousness is because it is the month that precedes the blessed month of Ramadan. It is a month wherein a person does preparation in preparing for this blessed month. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam himself, in no other month would Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam excessively fast more than he would in the month of Shaban. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam would excessively fast in the month of Ramadan, month of Shaban, and this fasting would be in preparation of the month of Ramadan. Now, unfortunately, when we do have these type of auspicious occasions and moments, we as the Muslim Ummah, instead of following the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam and carrying out the correct form of practices, we tend to go on various extremes. With regards to the month of Ramadan, the month of Shaban, there is one night which is regarded as the 15th of Shaban or Shabrat, Laylatul Barat, and this is the night which precedes the 15th day of the month of Shaban. Now, with regards to the auspiciousness of the 15th of Shaban, and by 15th of Shaban we mean the night, the Laylatul Barat. With regards to this night as well, there is extremes. There is one extreme wherein there are those who totally reject this night, stating that there is absolute no auspiciousness to this night. There is no virtue at all with regards to this night, and that it is not established at all. That is one verdict, and that is one opinion and one view. And then on the other side there is an opinion and view wherein that this night holds virtue and auspiciousness, and maybe we may go beyond what we are meant to be doing in this night. What is the correct understanding with regards to the night of Barat? And that is, my dear friends, with regards to ahadith, there are many ahadith that actually mention the night of Barat. Many ahadith that mention the night of Barat. However, majority or almost all of these riwayat, these ahadith, hold weaknesses in its chain or in the hadith. And it is because of the weakness of these ahadith that there are those who totally reject that there is no basis to the night of Barat, Shabarat does not exist. And then there is the sound opinion, and the sound opinion is that the fact that there are so many ahadith, although they may be in status and category, although they may be weak, but just the fact that there are numerous ahadith mentioning this night shows that its auspiciousness and its virtue cannot totally be rejected as well. To the extent that the likes of Allama ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi, who is very staunch in regards to these matters, even he acknowledges that this night exists. And that is that I mentioned to you on the basis on the usul, that although the hadiths are weak, if there were just a couple of hadiths with regard to the fazilat and the virtue of Laylatul Barat, and they were weak, then we would understand that look, this night does not exist. But the sheer number of hadiths mentioned with regard to night of Barat itself indicates towards the fact that yes, there is some auspiciousness with regards to this night. And with regards to ahadith, the numerous ahadith that are mentioned with regards to this night, the night of Barat, what is quite common in these ahadith is, what we understand from these ahadith is, that this night, and it is for this reason that it is called Laylatul Barat, that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that this is the night wherein, compared to other nights, meaning on other nights and normal nights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the latter third of the night, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to the heavens of this world out of seeking or in awaiting those who will turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the night of Barat, this is different, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already from the beginning of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts forgiving, and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down like the rain. It is for this reason that it is known as Laylatul Barat. Barat means to freedom, the night of freedom. To be able to free yourself. And that too from what? Free yourself from the fire of Jahannam. How? Free yourself from the fire of Jahannam by making tawbah and istighfar, by getting and having yourself forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why it is called Laylatul Barat. For this reason it is called Laylatul Barat. And what others will call it Shabi Barat. So from the hadith we established that what is common in this hadith is that this is the night of forgiveness by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence we should seek the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this night. And in the hadith, Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam has mentioned that there are certain exceptions of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives many aside from a few exceptions. And the hadith have mentioned a number of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive on this night. One is an idolater, the other one person who commits shirk, the one who disobeys their parents, the one who harbors enmity with his fellow Muslim brother, the one who drinks alcohol. There are various that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu mentioned, and majority, a lot of these ahadith have the mention of the one who harbors enmity with his fellow Muslim brother. That such a person will not be forgiven on this night by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is because of this that we have this trend, which in haqiqat and reality is just a trend, custom, that on the night of Barat people start sending text messages to one another. And in those messages they start asking for forgiveness from one another. That if we have ever done anything to you, or if we have said something to you, then please forgive us on this blessed night of Barat. So this sending of messages around on this night, this has emitted and this has come from this, because of what Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala has mentioned, that each person will be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the one who harbors enmity with his fellow Muslim brother. On the basis of this, Allah subhanahu, on the basis of this, we send this type of message asking for forgiveness from one another. And one thing for us to realize is, understand is, that this mere sending a text message to somebody that if I've done anything to you, said something to you, forgive me, that is nothing at all. Because that is just a customary message that we send around. If we have done something wrong to somebody, we have to sincerely ask them for forgiveness for it. And if we have taken something which is unlawful for us from that individual, it is our duty that we need to repay that unless that person sincerely forgives us for it. So these forms of customary asking for forgiveness, this has no basis either. So this is something that if we want to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we need to rid ourselves of this hatred and enmity that we have for one another. Now coming back to the night of Barat, with regards to the fazilat and the virtue of it, as I mentioned, one is that this is the night, this is the night of salvation, this is the night wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. Hence it is known as the night of Barat. Freedom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the black marks. So that's why it's known as Night of Barat. Now, as I mentioned to you previously, when it comes to these type of auspicious occasions and nights, this is where we have that ifrat, the freedom, we will say, either we do not do anything at all, or we start bringing into these nights certain practices which have no basis in it whatsoever, which holds no basis to it at all. And this night of Barat is one of those nights as well, wherein we do quite a lot of innovations or practices which do not exist at all, which have no connection with this night. And as I mentioned to you, this night is a night of Barat, which means that a person should do whatever ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they are able to do. Whether it is the tilawat of the Quran, whether it is the extra nawafil, seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these are the things that we should be doing in this night. Aside from that, there is no other ibadat or any other worship that has been specifically prescribed to be done in the night of Barat. No, nothing at all mentioned with regards to what we should, any specific ibadat that needs to be done in the night of Barat. There are certain customary actions that we do or practices that we regard to be essential, or we regard these to be part of Shab Barat. And from those, one is with regards to visiting the graveyard, for instance, with regards to fasting. These are two common ones, and aside from that, then there are cultural practices that go on, which might differ according to different countries and different cultures. With regard to these two things first, as time is short as well, one is with regard to the practice of going to the graveyard. And there is always mentioned that on this night we should go to the graveyard, and that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to the graveyard on this night. Now, one misconception that needs to be clarified is that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not go specifically on the night of Barat to the graveyard on a constant basis for it to become a sunnat of the night of Barat. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would visit the graveyard commonly, regularly visit the graveyard. And if on such occasion, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam would visit the Baqi at night, if it fell on the 15th of Shaban, does not make that a practice of the night of the 15th of Shaban. Hence, it is not sunnah that a person on a regular basis, yes, where on the occasion it may have fallen on the 15th of Shaban, shows that if a person in their lifetime maybe once does goes on that night, then that is accomplished. But to make it an established practice, to go and visit the graveyard on the night, the 15th of Shaban, the night, on a regular basis is not established from the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just going and visiting the grave was a common practice of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is one. The other misconception is with regard to the fasting of the 15th of Shaban. A lot of people fast on the 15th of Shaban. And this has come about due to just one hadith which is in Ibn Majah, narrated by Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, wherein it is mentioned that the day should be spent in ibadat and the night should be spent in ibadat and the day should be spent in fasting. However, this hadith is mawzu. Mawzu means that it is a fabricated hadith. There is no other hadith at all. It's just one hadith. And this hadith too is a fabricated hadith. It's not weak, but it is fabricated hadith. And it is not correct for us to practice upon a fabricated hadith. So in other words, there is no establishment at all of fasting solely on the 15th of Shaban. So this is not a sunnah of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not a practice of the 15th of Shaban, although many are practicing this. Yes, what was the practice of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was a practice over all the months of the year. And that is Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam would fast on the 13th, 14th and 15th ayyam-e-Bid. The 13th, 14th and 15th of every month. That Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to fast. And I mentioned earlier on, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam would fast excessively in the month of Shaban. And this is the targheeb given as well, encouragement. Unless a person feels, and Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said not to fast in the latter part of the month of Shaban, because then a person will become weak and will become tired, and then he'll find fasting in the month of Ramadan difficult. So Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam would instruct that we fast regularly during the early days, the first part of the month of Shaban, to get into the habit of practicing, and then leave it towards the latter part so that it becomes easy for us in the month of Ramadan. But it was the common practice of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam to fast on the 13th, 14th and 15th of every month. Hence that person who does fast these 3 days, or in the month of Shaban fast on these 3 days, and this would be the sunnah of fasting on the 13th, 14th and 15th. Aside from that, just to fast on the 15th itself is not established from the sunnah of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hence, if we were thinking that it was sunnah till now, and we were practicing upon it, now that we know that it is not established, our duty is that we abstain from it. Hence, as if we do not abstain from it, and we continue fasting, thinking that it is sunnah, it is part of the amal of the 15th of Shaban, then this makes it an innovation, this makes it into a bid'ah. And this is what bid'ah is, where we start practicing something regarding it to be part of deen, where in actual fact it isn't. Hence these two things, my dear friends, are not essentials at all. Visiting the graveyard, and similarly fasting on the day, the 15th of Shaban, this too has not been established from the hadith. As I mentioned to you, there is only one hadith, and however that one hadith too is a fabricated hadith. Hence, my dear friends, if a person does want to fast, then should fast on the 13th, 14th and 15th, and not exclusively on the 15th, as this is not established. These, my dear friends, are two common practices which you can say are maybe international practices. Aside from that, there will be those practices which people will do according to their customs, depending on what culture, where they've come from, and maybe some of those practices will continue with us here as well. And a few examples of this is, and this which has come predominantly from Pakistan, and because there are many who are attached to Pakistan, who are originally from Pakistan, we do find this here in our country as well. And that is, 15th of Shaban in Pakistan, there is this trend of doing what fireworks. That's what you'll hear here as well, fireworks. And if you wonder that all of a sudden Sunday night is not bonfire night, it's not November, there's no nikah taking place, no marriage as well, why are there fireworks? And you know for sure that this is because of Shabrat. Shabrat, there is some attachment with the things, and this is how we become. Instead of doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to make this into fun and leisure. And we want to start having fireworks and that, wasting money on that and entertainment in it. So there is no basis at all to fireworks attached with 50. Did fireworks exist? During the time of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the whole Medina was bong bong bong, and they were having fireworks on the 9th, 15th of Shaban. But the hadith would have mentioned these things. The hadith would have mentioned these things. We would have given you free fireworks from the masjid, but take some after Jumma, but take fireworks and use this on the 15th of Shaban. There is no establishment to that as well. And then there is another practice as well, which is from Pakistan, which is here as well, because there was a time when I was in Karachi for a while. And I was there during the month of Shaban. So I have personally witnessed this as well. Whereas there is a trend of halwa puri as well. or where we regard it to be sunnah, or some part of the 15th of Shaban, night of 15th of Shaban, that we need to eat halwa. We need to cook halwa and eat halwa. My dear friends, there is no basis to this. Yes, Nabi Kareem said, yuhibbul al-halwa. Nabi Sam likes sweet meat. But there is no mention of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam actually having halwa. Of having halwa, there is no basis to that. We do not know where that has come from. So there is no basis of making halwa on this. And similarly, my dear friends, because time is short, neither do the marhumeen visit us on the 15th of Shaban, and for that sake we need to put out halwa or any food or any other things for them. So they're going to come, and if they see that we have not given any food in charity, or we have not put any food out there, then these marhumeen, they're going to become upset with us. There is no basis to that at all. But the marhum, why should they come here for? The marhum are in their graves now. They're in alam barzakh, they're in Jannat or Jahannam or in between Araf somewhere. So do you really think that they're going to come out of Jannat there to come here for your food here? But they're not going to buy. They're not going to come here for your food. They're not interested in the food of this world here. Allah is giving them their halwa there, which is more enjoyable. So they're not going to come to eat our food here. And neither are they going to get upset because they're not going to know. They're not going to come here to witness these things. These are baseless practices that have changed from back home and which have continued, and we are still continuing with these practices. It's very, very important that we leave these practices. There's no basis to it at all. All it is that we just want an excuse for what? For dawat. We just want an excuse for a meal. We just want an excuse in order to do these type of things. And the main thing that we're supposed to do, that we do not do. When it comes to doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how many of us will actually go to the masjid and read our Isha Salatul Jama'ah? That we won't do, but we'll have halwa puri at home. That we won't do, but we'll have da'wat and other things going on at home. But that which is essential that we're supposed to do, that will not take place. And this is where we need to understand and where we need to get our priorities established as well. And at the same time, one other important point is, and I mentioned this a lot of times in the month of Ramadan, especially when we have the odd nights in the last 10, when it could be the possibility of Laylatul Qadr. And that is that we ourselves, unfortunately, have taken away the spirit of individual ibadah. Whether it's a Laylatul Qadr, whether it is a night of Barat, as I mentioned, any auspicious night, there what each one is supposed to be doing is that we increase our ibadah, we increase our ta'alluq with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these are the nights of doing what? The nights of doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is night of doing the ibadat of Allah ta'ala. It is nowhere mentioned that whenever these auspicious nights came, that Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam would summon the Sahaba in Masjid Nabawi and start giving them a lecture, a long lecture to pass the entire night of Qadr in the Masjid. And this is how we have become now. That when it is the 15th of Shaban, we have a jalsa in the Masjid. When it is night of Qadr, we have a jalsa in the Masjid. Where there is qiraat after qiraat after qiraat, there is nasheeds and naats and nazms after the other, and one bayan and another bayan and another bayan. But these nights are not there to entertain the people. These nights are not there for bayans. These nights are not there for qiraats and nasheeds. Although we may think that, okay, chalo, this is an excuse to get the people in a masjid and for them to be in the masjid, which is understandable. So this is how weak we have become. Until there isn't any halwa puri, we won't come to the masjid. But the reality is that these nights are not for gatherings. These nights are for us to do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let the people be and let them do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, we've never had any specific program on the night of Barat. Unless it is on the normal Wednesday Majlis or the Friday Tafseers, and that same program continues, but no exclusive program at all night of Barat. Why? Because it's not for day of having any program like that. Even when it comes to Ramadan as well, no specific program whatsoever on the night, on the 27th either. Wherein we have nasheeds and bayans and anything else. Whatever the Ramadan programs are, that carry on as it is every day. Because these are not the nights for us to be doing these type of things. It is the night for us to encourage the people to do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a night of Barat. That is to free ourselves from the fire of Jahannam, do tawbah and istighfar, do whatever nafal ibadah that we can do, and zikr tilawat we can do. Do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.